I think when you look at the context of this case, when you see the statements coming out from Yvette Falarca and from her attorney Driver, it seems that they're being completely disingenuous. A few days ago, we got an update in the restraining order case between the president of the Berkeley College Republicans and leader of BAM, by any means necessary, Yvette Falarca. According to Berkeley side, Yvette Falarca ordered to pay legal fees of former president of Berkeley College Republicans. Well, there's the update, but let's go back in time and look at what actually happened and where we're at now. Back on September 12th, I published a video, Yvette Falarca files restraining order on Berkeley Republican. Apparently, Yvette Falarca was claiming that the leader, the president of the Berkeley College Republicans, was stalking and harassing her and got a restraining order filed against him. I was at Berkeley at the time, and I was walking around, and sure enough, I see some commotion. Apparently what had happened is that Yvette Falarca, or someone associated with her group, walked up and dropped the restraining order at the feet of the Berkeley College Republican, who then said, "What is this?" They told him it was a restraining order. There was some confusion about whether or not it was legitimate. Apparently, the Berkeley College Republicans then spoke with the police, who told him that it was, in fact, a legitimate restraining order and that he had to leave. And that's what happened. Now, back on October 13, the court had lifted the restraining order against the Berkeley College Republican president. According to Campus Reform, a California court has dismissed an Antifa leader's temporary restraining order against University of California Berkeley College Republicans president Troy Warden. The temporary restraining order against respondent Troy Warden is terminated effective immediately, Judicial Commissioner Thomas Rash wrote. There's a bit of a he said, she said going on with Yvette Falarca claiming that she's being stalked and harassed, but at the same time, people associated with the College Republicans are claiming they're the ones being stalked and harassed. Members of BAM have accused Warden and other College Republicans of stalking and harassing them on campus. The students, however, have maintained that there is no evidence to support Falarca's accusation. Several CR members, in fact, have themselves reported being followed and intimidated by Antifa groups. So again, the important update is that Yvette Falarca has been ordered by the courts to pay at least some of the legal fees. But before we get into the main story, let's look at what BAM is for those that might not be familiar. Now, BAM stands for By Any Means Necessary, and it's short for the Coalition to Defend Affirmative Action, Integration, and Immigrant Rights and Fight for Equality by Any Means Necessary. BAM is an American left-wing militant group that organizes protests and litigation to achieve its aims. In 2005, the American Civil Liberties Union reported that in 2002, the Federal Bureau of Investigation identified BAM as thought to be involved in terrorist activities. According to the FBI, the group's protests were discussed in a meeting about alleged links to terrorist organizations. Now, to get a little bit more broad, BAM isn't explicitly Antifa, but they are associated with Antifa and anti-fascist groups. And on September 1st, Politico ran the story, FBI, Homeland Security warn of more Antifa attacks. Confidential documents called the anarchists that seek to counter white supremacists domestic terrorists. Now, I don't mean to poison the well with this story, but I want to highlight some of the issues with BAM because there is a stark contrast between the Berkeley College Republicans, which is a student group of political activists, and an organization that has been labeled as potentially involved in terrorist activities, whose leader is actually charged with inciting a riot and is seen in some videos punching a man who's in the street because he's protesting. Context is important, and while it is entirely possible that the Berkeley College Republicans are in fact stalking and harassing Yvette Falarca, you have to take into consideration the difference between the two groups, and one group called By Any Means Necessary, which includes acts of violence and potentially, depending on your interpretation, domestic terrorism, and another group which is a group of student Republicans. There is a dramatic difference in the tactics used by either group. Now, on to the main update that Yvette Falarca was ordered to pay the legal fees of Troy Warden. According to Berkeley side, an Alameda County Superior Court Commissioner ordered Yvette Falarca, the controversial Berkeley middle school teacher and activist, to pay $10,000 in attorney fees and $1,100 in court fees for her failed attempt to get a permanent restraining order against Troy Warden, the former head of the Berkeley College Republicans. Falarca got a temporary restraining order against Warden in September after alleging he was stalking and harassing her for her political activities on campus. A judge initially ordered Warden to stay 100 yards away from Falarca, but later reduced the distance to 10 yards. Falarca then applied for a permanent restraining order in October, but withdrew the application the day of the hearing, making Warden the prevailing party entitled to receive lawyer and court fees. By ruling that Yvette Falarca did not demonstrate good faith in filing the restraining order, the court recognized the frivolous nature of Falarca's actions, Mark Muser, Warden's attorney, said in a press release issued after the decision. The award of attorney fees should send a strong signal that she can't abuse the court system to silence speech. Unfortunately, for Troy Warden, the attorney fees are actually closer to $178,000. At least that's what his lawyer is charging, and Yvette Falarca has only been ordered to pay around $10,000 of that. Muser said he spent 175 hours interviewing witnesses and reviewing videos of Warden's and Falarca's interactions on the UC Berkeley campus. He also said he attended 6 court hearings. Muser asked the commissioner to increase the payment to better reflect his work, but Rash declined to do so and indicated that he thought the $178,600 was not a reasonable request. So it seems the gist of the story so far is that Yvette Falarca, leader of By Any Means Necessary, filed a restraining order against Troy Warden, which was temporary. She then moved to file a permanent restraining order, but withdrew the application shortly beforehand, making Troy Warden the prevailing party. Now, Troy Warden's attorney is saying this is a victory and requesting more money from the courts, but the court has only ordered a reimbursement of around $10,000. However, Yvette Falarca's attorney has an entirely different perspective on what happened. Shanta Driver, the attorney for Falarca and BAM, told the court that any fee, even $10,000, was too high because it would set terrible precedent. It would mean that any woman seeking protection from potential or actual abuse with a restraining order could face a crushing financial burden if the order was not granted. Driver also told the commissioner that the court description that Falarca had filed for a TRO in bad faith was misapplied. So let me just address that really quickly. Yvette Falarca withdrew her application. This was not an instance of a woman seeking a temporary restraining order losing in arguments. This is a case of a woman filing a permanent restraining order and withdrawing her application, in which case the court has ordered to pay 1/17 of the actual legal fees accrued by Troy Warden. This is not a defeat, this is not terrible precedent, and that is a complete exaggeration. But I'm not surprised to see that they've actually taken it one step further by accusing the courts of taking political sides. This verdict was based on the judge's decision to support the political views of Troy Warden and the alt-right, and that is not acceptable, said Driver. Rask pointed out in court that Falarca never directly addressed her claims against Warden when she was on the witness stand. Driver said she would appeal Rash's decision. And finally, it says Falarca is scheduled to appear twice more in court in January, once for a pre-trial hearing on felony charges she incited a riot in Sacramento in June 2016, and once for various misdemeanor charges surrounding her actions at a September protest march in Berkeley. I think when you look at the context of this case, when you see the statements coming out from Yvette Falarca and from her attorney Driver, it seems that they're being completely disingenuous. Yvette Falarca was charged with a felony and has 2 more court appearances, and this is the leader of a group called By Any Means Necessary, which at one point, the FBI believed it may have been involved in terrorist activities. Warden is entitled to lawyer and court fees because Yvette Falarca withdrew her application. This is not about arguments. Now, I have met people associated with Antifa that I would call good people. I was in California and I actually got to interview someone on the street during a live stream for about 10 or 15 minutes. Black mask, black bloc, anti-fascist anarchist who said he was opposed to violence and there was a lot of things that Antifa did that he didn't like. In Portland, I had several people come up to me in full black bloc, masks, sunglasses, and actually shake my hand. Granted, that's the minority of the anti-fascist groups, of the black bloc. But there are still people, I would say, they are good people and they are well-intentioned. Although many of them may be overly emotional and prone to violence, that's not absolute. Now, when looking at Yvette Falarca and By Any Means Necessary, they are much more extreme than Antifa. And I think, a lot of news organizations, a lot of organizations associated with the right have flat out called BAM an Antifa organization. And while that's technically true, I think it's a bit misleading in that BAM is something entirely in and of itself. They've been around a lot longer than we've had Antifa street battles. So they are something totally different. And I think that's very important for everyone to take into consideration. Considering that I was on the ground when all of this started, I figured I should at least talk about how it's ending. There may be more to the story because Yvette Falarca plans to appeal the court's decision, but keep in mind, she withdrew her application. This is not about arguments. However, this still brings us to the bigger question: is the free speech, free expression debate over? Are the street battles over? And what does 2018 have in store for rallies, free speech, and college campuses? It's hard to say. A lot of people are saying, you know what, it's dying down, it's almost over. But I like to remind people it's winter, and people don't go outside in winter, and protests and news tend to be slow over the holidays and winter months. So there's still a lot that might happen. And that being said, let me know what you think in the comments below. Any predictions for where this will end up? How do you feel about this story, about these Restraining orders, do you think Yvette Falarco was right? Do you think she was wrong? Let me know in the comments below and we'll keep the conversation going. If you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter at Timcast. And if you want to support my work, go to timcast.com/donate. Give whatever you'd like or give nothing at all. My videos are always free and available every day at 4 p.m. And I've just created a Discord server. So anybody who wants to come in and chat in the newsroom, we have a few more whimsical channels and some channels for breaking news and general news discussion. I've also set up a Patreon-only channel in the Discord server, so if you are a patron or donor who gives at least $10, shoot me an email with your details, and I will give you an invite into the private channel on Discord if you so desire. And also make sure to subscribe to my second channel in the description below. It's my backup channel, and it's also got more irreverent commentary. So again, thank you all so much for watching, and stay tuned. I will see you tomorrow at 4.